Hi, I'm Brother Jake, and in response to all these so-called intellectuals and feminists talking about how Mormons are sexist, I just wanted to set the record straight. Mormonism is not sexist. Let me explain. The thing is, gender is a super important part of our eternal identity. In fact, we even had a gender back in the pre-mortal existence when everyone lived with God before they came to Earth. So all of us were either boys or girls even before we were born into male or female bodies, and whatever body you're born into is the gender you were before you were born, and the gender you'll be for the rest of eternity. I mean, sure, I guess there are some people that claim to identify themselves as a woman in a man's body or a man in a woman's body, but we're not even sure if that's a real thing anyway. And if it is, I'm sure God will figure something out. The reason that we know that gender is so important is because of modern-day prophets in the church that made a statement called the family, a proclamation to the world. This proclamation talks about how important the family unit is for society and how it needs to be made up of one man and one woman married to each other, and how if anything happens to mess with that definition of a family, then bad stuff is going to happen. And that was way back in 1995. Nobody was talking about family values way back then. They were way ahead of their time. That's how you can know that the people who wrote it were real prophets inspired by God. Anyway, one of the things the family proclamation talks about is the roles men and women have in a family, because the roles are different but equal. The man's role is to, be the protector and breadwinner and preside over the family, and the woman's role is to nurture the children. So the father presides while the woman nurtures, but they do it as equal partners. Different but equal. Think about it this way. The man is like the head of the household, but the woman is like the neck. So even though the head is technically running the rest of the body, the neck is just as important. I mean, you die without a neck, or at least look really weird. Plus, the neck can turn the head any way it wants, even though technically the head would be the one telling the neck to move in the first place. Well, it's not a perfect metaphor, but you get the idea. The head and the neck work together as equals to help run the arms and legs and the rest of the family. Another big part of our gender identity has to do with the priesthood. Remember that the priesthood is the authority of God that lets people do legit baptisms and stuff. It's also the structure that makes up the administration of the church, like the prophet and apostles and people we call 70s and stake presidents and bishops and all that. Anyway, it turns out that only dudes can hold the priesthood, so only guys can be prophets or apostles or bishops. Don't get me wrong, anyone can get the blessings of the priesthood, like a legit baptism or a temple marriage. It's just that the people that hold the priesthood and actually do things like baptize or marry people or give priesthood blessings or watch over a congregation or run administrative meetings or make decisions about church policy and curriculum are all guys. Now at this point you might be saying, but systematically prohibiting certain people from participating in the administrative body that determines church policy based solely on their gender is the textbook definition of sexism. But you couldn't be more wrong. The priesthood isn't something that exists to control people, it's there to give people the blessings of the gospel. Besides, us guys need something structured like priesthood responsibility to make us get off our behinds and help people in need. But just like we learned in the family proclamation, women don't need that kind of thing because they're naturally more nurturing. It's like this. Men have the priesthood, but women have motherhood. Different but equal roles. Well, maybe they're not exactly parallel. I mean, sure, technically the priesthood is available to all men in the church over the age of 12 regardless of physical limitations or marital status, while motherhood can technically stay out of a woman's reach through things beyond her control like infertility or the inability to find a husband. And sure, technically a man doesn't need a woman involved at any point to wield the power of God, while a woman would need to bind herself with a man in a temple marriage performed by a man to be eligible for motherhood. And sure, a man receives the priesthood just by having other men with a priesthood set their hands on his head and say a prayer, while a woman becomes a mother by carrying another human inside of her for 9 months and then descending into the valley of the shadow of death. But don't worry about it. You'll be doing cool God stuff before you know it. And for those still not convinced by these arguments, you're missing the point. The priesthood isn't about controlling people, it's about helping people. It's a freaking lay clergy, for crying out loud. You think guys like having to run a congregation in their spare time? What is it you feminists want? The authority? Why are you so obsessed with power anyway? Also, you have to remember that God's the one who put the whole system in place. He called the prophet and apostles, and they communicate directly with him. And God is gender neutral. I mean, he has a gender, he's obviously a dude, but he's not sexist, so he's never going to let those priesthood leaders do or say anything sexist. So it wouldn't make a difference if any of them were women anyway, since they're just doing what God wants, and God is definitely not a sexist. And if you still think Mormons are sexist, chew on this. The largest women's association in the world is the Mormon Relief Society, which women run all on their own and completely independently under priesthood supervision. We even let women wear pants to church, and after only 183 years, we just allowed a woman to give a prayer in our biennial general conference. Would a sexist organization do that? No way! The point is, Mormons don't see women as being less than men. Men and women just have different roles. Different but equal. See? Not sexist.